Greetings to all of you. This is Pastor C.L. May. I bring you greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. I regrettably cannot be there with you today, but however, my most sincere condolences go out to your family. My heart is filled with sorrow upon hearing the news about Brother Adell's passing. My prayer is that the love of God enfolds you during your difficult times and that He helps you to heal with the passing of time. After the tears have died and the goodbyes have been said, all we have to hold on to are the happy memories that we've shared with our loved ones who have passed. This is what keeps them alive in our hearts and in our minds, and they will continue to live on through us. You know, I want to say to Sister Margaret, I love you and may the Lord bless you. To Kenny and Mark, to Pebbles, and to, I call him Adell Jr. out of Florida. You know, Brother Adell was an outdoorsman, and I want to encourage the family with an object from outdoors inspired by scriptures. When I spoke to Kenny the other day, I asked him how his mom was doing. He said she was okay, surrounded by family and friends. Cars were parked from one end of the street to the next. Grills were going, the tents were set up. I thought to myself, maybe I can encourage my family, who I affectionately call my family. Teachings from a tent. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 5, for we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. I thought about that for a moment, and I thought that Paul describes to us how life is temporary. Paul uses two words to describe the temporary nature of this life. The word tabernacle refers to a tent or a temporary dwelling. It is used as a metaphor for these human bodies, which are temporary homes for our souls, which will be taken down at death. The other word he uses is dissolved. This word means to demolish, to destroy, or to loosen. It was used to refer to travelers reaching the end of their journey and loosening the straps which held the burdens to the back of their beast, their animals. In other words, Paul is saying to us, this life seems as temporary as time. The Apostle Paul likens the human bodies to a tent. And I want to say this, I encourage you today, when I reflect upon the life of Brother Adell and what they means to me, him being an outdoorsman, Kenny and Mark and Derek and the rest of them would go hunting and fishing. They never invited me to do that. They included me on so many things, but obviously I didn't seem to be much of an outdoorsman to them. But they would always include me in terms of telling me that they were going. But I want to share and encourage them today about this tent as we look and reflect upon the legacy and life of Brother Adell. Tents are temporary and never meant to be permanent, but movable. You don't build a permanent residence if you're just passing through. You give it enough attention to last until you get to your real home. So tents are temporary, but not only a temporary tent, they tear. Tent tears. It doesn't provide a lot of protection, basically just the sun and rain, but the wind and the storms, they play havoc on our tents. It wears out very soon. Tent tends to rot. A rotted hole in the roof. The waterproof wears off. It begins to leak. The ropes begin to rot. The fabric begins to tear. Our earthly tent wears out. Between 60 and 80 years they wear out. But not only do they tear and they're temporary, but they're transitory. It keeps us from our real home. You use a tent for a little while. You can't be in both places at once. If you're using the tent, you can't be at home. And if you're at home, then your tent would have to have been moved. We many times get attached to the value of the tent, but we know tents are transitory. There comes a time when we have to fold up our tent and we move on. You see, the obvious parallel here today is Brother Adell has occupied his earthly tent for some 70 plus years. He's been sending building materials for the Lord, or to the Lord all the time. Last week, he moved. It was moving day. He simply moved out of the decaying tent and moved into his eternal mansion. Who among us here or there would call him back to that old tent? No one among us here would want him to abandon that mansion. You see, beloved, I'm inspired by a story I often tell. It was of this porter, this man who would collect cars along with his boss. He would travel hundreds of miles to collect cars. They found a rare antique. He traveled over 600 miles to collect this antique. When he got there, he connected it to the car. He began to drive the antique car back home. He was in an automobile. The car was wrecked. He didn't know how he would tell his boss or his supervisor. Soon he bit the bullet. He decided he would call. He says to him, the car, the rare antique, has been damaged because we were in an accident. The owner says, how bad is the accident? He says, the body seems to be totally demolished. He says, well, how is the motor? He said, the motor looks intact. The owner says, junk the body, bring the motor home. That's what God did with Brother Adell the other day. He junked the body and he brought the motor home. Listen, beloved, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I want each of us to know that the Lord always has conquered death. Oh, death, where is thy sting? Oh, grave, where is thy victory? I want all of us to know today, please say this, please do it with me. We have the victory. Yes, that's not peace, that's victory, baby. That's a V. We have the victory, and we thank God who ultimately gives us the victory. Beloved, be blessed. I love you. The Lord loves you more, but I just love you the way he loves you because he said so. God bless you.